Hello, hello, hello. My name is Jules Hare, and I'm joined by my beautiful soul sister, Janel Willette. And today we jump into our next revolutionary conversation. Today is a very special day, and there's something really beautiful that is going to shine through today. So we invite you to notice, to feel, to be fully present, to engage in the gems that reveal themselves as we discuss our revolutionary experiences, the conversation, as we delve deeper into that which truly moves us and is alive within our souls and hearts and motivates us to keep doing what we're doing. Welcome, Janelle. It's so exciting to be here with you today.
Yes, this is a beautiful day to dive into divine spontaneity and just see what wants to come through because the energies have been so powerful and profound in both ominous and auspicious ways.
Mm.
And most of us have felt both. And I think what's keeping me really balanced right now is that I can feel the depths of the auspicious and the possibilities of the auspicious, so that while what seems to the mind or to the emotional human self feels a little ominous or a little uncertain or a little uncomfortable, because there are so many edges and precipices, thresholds that we're all being asked to lean into or face. And Jules and I, with the Revolutionary Conversations, love to look at what balances, right? And so the auspicious and the ominous, the leaning in really helps how we live life from ourselves, from our deeper selves. So when the
Mm.
world seems like it's triggering and really getting the best of us, the power of leaning in balances, rejuvenates, and oftentimes can really just recalibrate our human system, our energy system.
And I think that's one of the hardest things for a lot of us. And I've been working on this myself a lot lately as things continue to come and push me into that place where I tend to be really uncomfortable. And in the past, when I'm really uncomfortable, I just pull back, I avoid, I distract, I find other things to do. I want to move towards what I desire and away from what I don't desire. And that's a human trait. It's what we tend to do. We have an aversion to something, or we have a magnetism to something, right? And we move towards what we're magnetized towards, and we move away from what we don't want. But what we're being called to do right now, and it's not just me, a lot of the clients I'm working with as well, the same experience. So in that moment of me noticing I do not want to go there, I want to pull back, instead of pulling back and doing what I always do, even just staying present in that, even before I decide to move towards it, staying present in that discomfort and sitting with it and just feeling it. And sometimes just that is enough to go, oh, wait a second, yeah, this is uncomfortable, and look, everything's still okay, right? The world hasn't blown up. Nobody's dying. Whew, this is uncomfortable, but okay, maybe I'm the only one noticing this discomfort. Ooh, look, that's probably the case. Right? And then that where the gem is, what you were talking about, Janelle, when you lean in and go, what if I just kept being in this discomfort? What if I even leaned in further? Wow, this is so different, and it feels so unfamiliar and so uncomfortable because of its unfamiliar. But the more we do that, and the more we lean in, and the more we trust that we can be okay, and that it's actually not as bad as we once thought it was, to lean into that discomfort, we are strengthening ourselves, we're building that resiliency, and we're experiencing something so completely different than anything we've experienced before. We're leaning into the novelty.
And I think what is so key is to recognize that oftentimes we don't actually know what we're avoiding, because our perceptions get clouded by past memories or experiences. And then we've made up our mind, I'm going to avoid that. And whoa, there's something about this moment, this situation that reminds me of that. Close down, push the pause, mute the mind, and close people out, right? And so that willingness to lean in and just pause, lean in and pause. And for me, it's the question to myself, what's really going on here? What's really going on here? And if I ask myself that question, oftentimes it brings me back to exactly this moment that is not disguised by futurizing or pulling in from the past. What's really going on here? Wow, that person said something to me. It triggered me, this and that. But if you really just break it down, break it down, break it down, and you just look at piece by piece, a lot of times you can get a sense of that reaction and just go, wow, okay, there's nothing I actually need to do to make things different. And that's the witnessing. That's the witnessing awareness practice. Something happens, you notice you're triggered, you notice you're pushing away or retracting. Question, what's really going on here? And of course, that's going to happen within 3 to 5 seconds. But the moment you ask yourself that, all that spinning stops and all of your energy comes back to your center. And there's a chance to reframe and to reconfigure what your mind and your emotions are doing. And sometimes it's a bit hard because it's like swimming upstream until you really get the feeling, have some gravitas, and begin to trust the anchor. The leaning in is really going to be where you begin to tap into your genius knowing self. There's the knowing that comes from thinking and acquiring knowledge, and there's all caps knowing, which is the infinite potential of your great sphere of godliness, of infinite potential self. And so to go into that center, you really can dwell in and access that reservoir of your own great knowing. And the more that we do that, we begin to feel there's so much of the pressure that I felt staying in the 3D world gets lifted, gets released. The contraction expands and relaxes. And that knower has a dwelling place deep inside of you that's grounded, that's rooted. And what starts happening, I think, Jules, is for myself, is I started standing up for myself, not from a personal way, not overtly, but from I'm going to stay here. I'm going to claim my truth and I'm going to hold myself and the world to that. And that means I'm not going to react, and I'm going to declare what I know to be true in a loving, kind way.
Oh, and I love the way you said that, Janelle, because so many people talk about having these boundaries and having to set these boundaries and hold these boundaries. And I described it today like somebody who is a warrior and they have all of this armor on. And it's kind of cumbersome to move in that armor. And it takes a lot of energy to hold that armor up and to keep yourself barriered and barricaded from the world. That is one choice, but it takes a lot of energy and attention. And it's outside of you. But what you just described there, that's more of the Shaolin monk. That's the, wait a second, I build this strength within myself, and my center is it can waver, it can move, but it can never be broken. Like it is so strong that it holds the integrity, and it takes way less energy once you've built that core. And I was working with one of my beloved people today, and as we were working, he had said, I asked for this. This was my intention. But then this thing, this undesirable thing, showed up. And I said, okay, it's possible that that is exactly what you were asking for without knowing it. Because a lot of the times when we ask for something to reveal itself to us, when we ask for some clarity, that which shows up is that which will bring clarity. But because it shows up in a container or in a form that we don't like or that we're averse to, we then run away from it instead of recognizing, oh, this is exactly what I asked for. It's showing me something, and it's really uncomfortable, but it's the treasure, it's the gem. And it was beautiful watching him fully presence that to the point where he leaned in uncomfortably, but got to that point where he recognized that part, that was a part of him that was showing him something about himself that was exactly what he had asked for. But the way that it showed up was so scary and so intimidating. And he was so averse to it that our first reaction, just like my first reaction we talked about, was to run away. And I think we all have a lot of things. I feel and know in the depth of my being that we all have a lot of things that are showing up for us right now that are full of gems that haven't been unwrapped because they're not in the form or the shape or the package that we deem as being valuable. But the treasure's right there.
I couldn't agree more, because there's something about the times, the energies that are just shifting, shape shifting, and moving what we know as our reality. And our ability to be resilient and pivot really comes from how we hold ourselves. And what I love to hold, Jules, is to be unchangeable in the midst of the ever changing. And that was my mantra for several years. It's almost like I sort of took what I loved, the way that Gandhi said, be the change. And I thought, well, that's half of it. But really the way I can be the change versus do the change is if I find within myself the unchangeable. So that was my work for several years, how to find and how to work, be a steward of my own self, to find that part of myself that was unchanging. Because then my relationship with the ever changing and controlling things that I used to want to have just right just began to relax, because I found inside myself this dwelling place that does not change. And I think more than any other time, there's really an auspicious possibility to lean in and begin to establish that place inside of ourselves that we deeply know is unchanging. And we each have to find that and claim that and work with that ourselves. And so some of these are just the ways to begin to practice and get to know it. And the more you utilize it, it gets stronger. And the more you rely on it, then it gives you this ease that you have something to lean into when the going gets tough. Because a lot of times we can't just rely on somebody else, but we can't always rely on that part within ourselves.
As you say that too, Janelle, it reminds me of what you were saying earlier about going upstream. It's almost like we're all like barreling down, like all going the same direction downstream. And we want to go with the flow, but in that case, we're going with everyone else's flow. Right? So it takes that extra energy and intention and attention to actually slow down enough to get to that point of stillness to start going your own way, to start going upstream, to start exploring that. And my husband Phil and I have both remarked about uh, how the world is busy, and we don't want to use busy as a badge because busy just feels like it's just continuously moving. And in reality, we need to, like you said, we need to actually find that unchanging. And in order to do that, we need to access that stillness within ourselves and then find our own flow. So that presence of being able to recognize, oh, wait a second, I've been going with everyone else's flow for so long and in so many ways. And I myself, I'm speaking to my own experience. I know a lot of people are having the same experience. Maybe if you're listening, watching this, you've had this experience too. And maybe also the experience of recognizing, oh, this isn't mine. This I always thought was mine. This isn't actually my flow. This isn't my truth. This isn't my gold. I've just been flowing with someone else's or societies or my parents or cultures, whatever that is for you. Recognizing that you can slow down and find your own flow and tap into your own unchanging center, like you said, Janelle. And I'd love to hear, because I'm sure you've had this experience, Janelle, when you stepped into that, like what was your experience of actually like stepping in to that unchanging center while everything else was changing around you?
That's a very interesting question. The first thing that I notice is that I don't feel the impetus that I need to speak. I can just be there and listen and be in presence. And a lot of times that's when someone else or people around feel the power. Not necessarily my power, but the power, how I conduct myself in the midst of conflict, aversion, or challenge. And so to just be able to hold myself and be composed. So that presence is actually a gift I give to another because I'm not trying to push or pull or change anything that they're saying. I'm not loving it or hating it. I don't have the aversion, even though I don't agree. If I don't react, then they can begin to actually feel a reflection of their own words and actions. And I think that's a really fantastic way of using a tool that whether we're a leader or leading our own lives in a more meaningful and profound way, that we have that capacity to just be in presence, hold our poise, hold our power without needing to react. And I remember when I first did this, about 25 years ago. And because I didn't react, I said, okay, oh, that's interesting. And people used to love and hate that I would say that because I wouldn't get into the entanglement. Oh, that's interesting. Right? It's not a positive or a negative, and I have let the person know that I heard them. And a lot of times I now realize that it's not for me to give input to this. There was recently a person in my life, sort of on the outskirts, and I knew that I wasn't going to change her, even though I didn't agree with her. So knowing, because I went inside of myself, I'm going, wait a second, I strongly disagree with how she's doing her life and how she has brought that into the interactions between us. But that rebel was in realizing I'm not going to change her. She's been this way for many years. So how am I going to navigate myself and hold my power and hold my energy, knowing that I disagree and I'm not going to change her? So I don't even need to use the words of, I don't agree on this and that. And so just to be silent and not to even get into it caused her so much discomfort because I didn't give her a target.
Mm.
And I
And
was so happy because I didn't lose myself. And other times I would have. And I realized these tools and jewels that I've been working with come in handy because you never know when you're going to be in a confrontation or when there is a situation when the person just so strongly doesn't agree or wants to get one up on you. Who knows? But guess what? That's not my business because there's a really good chance that none of her reactions really had to do with what was going on between us. They were festering up, and I happened to trigger her because I didn't let her get away with bypassing the truth and conscious commerce, conscious interactions. And because I stood up for what I know is true, she couldn't believe that I pushed up against that. I mean, I held myself. So I think really it's a gift for all of us to add to the evolution of humanity.
mm,
And it's not about being strong and doing, but it's holding our center and not backing down on myself. And I learned a lot in that. And I realized, I'm like, this is a gift. And this is how we really become stewards of evolution in our own circle, in our own community, with our own people, is how we conduct our energy and our words and our ways. The
and
infrastructure amidst the structure of life is like the software that we can hone and harness.
and I love how in you standing your truth, you're honoring yourself, but you're also not dishonoring her, or and there's no negative um, energy. There's no, challenge. You're not trying to get her to challenge you. You're in fact being so centered in yourself, and so loving towards yourself and loving towards her because there's no judgment, but it's making her uncomfortable. And that I felt that before, right? That like, ooh, it's making them really uncomfortable. And I've in the past as a people pleaser, uh, I have identified as that and gone, oh, it's my job to make them feel comfortable. Oh, they're really uncomfortable. I should fill that space. And I think, there's a lot of people who aren't so comfortable in that quiet space, and really, that's the space that is the most potent, that pregnant pause, that space of non judgment, of pure listening, of pure presence, of not needing to make sense of things and just being a curious, active listener or just listener. And the way that you said that, Janelle, with your friend, it's like she had no rungs to climb on. If there was a ladder and she was looking for drama, there was no ladder to climb. There was nowhere to go. There was no button to push because you were fully present in yourself. And there's a part of me that goes, wow, what if everybody was at that place where there weren't buttons to push? And really, what would happen then? Would we just start dreaming things together? Would we start co-creating revolutionary experiences for one another if we took that energy that we otherwise put into the spinning of the drama and the pushing of the buttons and the climbing up the ladders and the trying to aggravate and initiate, cross triggering each other? What if that energy wasn't there? And what if we put it towards something else? What would happen then? Just that thought, like, what would happen?
I love that because there is obviously something when I had one of my, exuberant giant awakenings. And in that, I realized how much energy and how my nervous system was being so taxed on all this micromanaging, Janelle. And I go, wow. It was just like, it just took so much wattage because this hypervigilance that goes on in our mind on so many different levels and layers simultaneously while you're seemingly are talking to somebody else, all this is going on. And it's actually drawing power from your life force energy, from your reservoir. And so that's when I really noticed it, when it wasn't there. And I go, whoa. And so then all of a sudden, the efforts and the ways of what I needed to do were so much more efficient and effective. And then all of a sudden, maybe I'm accomplishing things in 1/3 less energy and output. And just that ease and grace. Because the other thing is, when I write, I'm present to myself. I'm not thinking, oh, I got to think up all these things, because I've stumbled writing and speaking so many times because I was everything but centered. There was so much chaos. I couldn't find my own internal center. So I've been there. I've really had my tests. And I know even this past episode that it was like, okay, it was going to be my challenge that I needed to master, right? Because we keep getting the catalysts and the people keep showing up, and usually in uncherry ways, so that you get the certificate of holding your center, or whatever your threshold is, your pattern that you keep repeating. Those people are still keep going to still show up and keep taunting you to say, hey, when are you going to realize this is a gift? And so there's that opportunity to take things full circle, however they come. Take them full circle. Take them full circle. And have somebody support you and just go, you know what? I want to do it this time. Will you hold me? Will you remind me to go to my center? Or will you just hold space for me and let me, take this? This time I'm going to do it. I remember about 10 years ago, I had a challenge in a relationship. And I said, you know what? If I don't take this on, and I'm gonna keep attracting another version and variation of this person. And so I promised myself I wasn't gonna leave that relationship until I brought to fruition my part. And it has been the most glorious thing, because none of those things show up in my world with people anymore. Because I took that moment to lean in and go, you know what? Once and for all, I'm going to get the certificate. I'm going to master this. It wasn't easy, but so rewarding.
So it's almost as if, and you tell me, I'm gonna summarize it. You tell me if this is right what you're describing. It's almost like we start all of these lessons. It's kind of like if you're taking an online program and you do it to like 75%, and then you never watch that video again. Or do another one, 75%. It gets challenging and you're like, I think I know what they're gonna say, and whatever. We'll just stop at 75%. So we go each and every one to 60 to 75%, but we never actually fully complete those circuits. And so each and every time one of those experiences comes up, because we haven't closed the loop, because we haven't continued to cycle through and close that circuit, it's just bleeding out extra energy over and over and over again as our life continues. And when we get to that 75%, there's aversion, and we don't want to go there, and it's uncomfortable, so we avoid it. So we never actually end up finishing those loops. But what you're saying is that if you actually sit there in the discomfort, lean into it, gather the gem that comes with it, get the diploma, right? Get that certificate, follow it through to its completion. And then the next one, all the way through to its completion, even though it's going to be uncomfortable, that all of those finishing and closing of those loops means that we're not losing all the extra energy everywhere. Would you say that's a good representation, or please feel free to jump in?
Sure, it is. And I think it goes back to what's really going on here. Giving yourself a chance to tell yourself the truth, right? Because then at least you pause the spin and you haven't jumped in to react, to push someone or something away or close down. We all have these patterns. So by asking myself that question, it's like I'm opening up and going, okay, I'm going to listen to the wisdom that dwells inside of me, right? Because we close it down when we react, go, I don't want that. Oh my God, that person again, another aggressive person or this or that. I don't want to deal with that. It's like the benevolence of the universe is in everything and everyone. And so that is truly the certainty. And that's the sacred promise for all of us. In every cell, tissue, and fiber, in all of this manifest and unmanifest of the cosmos, lives the benevolence of the universe. So it's a choice of how you're going to utilize that benevolence to bring your life full circle so that you can find your own liberation and truly be free at last from cause and effect, from patterns and cycles that never complete themselves. So that question, what's really going on here, is really the beginning of a new way of doing life, a new approach, and a promise to go, I'm taking this full circle. Here we go. And I'm not going to stop until, and actually, you may notice that I often wear bracelets, right? I've been wearing these bracelets, different versions and variations of them, for about 30 years. And I'll wear a different one every day. Every single time I put them on, it is a representation of my promise to myself to take it full circle. There's no beginning and there's no end. I know people wear bracelets for a lot of different reasons, but there'll be a theme when I put them on. Full circle.
Full
It's
circle.
always rewarding. So the more we do it, we go, that's just my way. That's the style by which I live. Oh, this is challenging. Here we go. Taking it all the way through. Because we remember it's always rewarding and we get the jewel. And then I don't have to repeat that same pattern. And you move on. And that's what evolution is. But it starts here with the choices that we make to ourselves.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Janelle, because the thought of all of the circles, and I invite everyone who's listening and watching right now, all of the circles, all of the cycles that we have followed through all the way, versus all of the ones that we didn't fully complete. And just feel that in your body right now. You'll know. You'll know that truth within you. And knowing that you can come back and you can follow through. You're not a lost cause. No one is a lost cause. The opportunity is there. And in fact, quite likely it's calling to you, waiting for you, beckoning to you to collect the jewel, to collect the gem that you've almost got, or that it knows, your body knows, your being knows. Heart and soul is behind you, calling to you in a way that might not seem so desirable, to get you to come back, to complete that cycle, that circle. So thank you so much, Janelle, for joining me. I know that if this is spoken to you, it's still speaking to you, and it's going to continue to speak to you. So if you need to watch this again and over again in your own cycle, we invite you to that as well. And so with that, thank you so much for joining us on this revolutionary conversation. There will be more, and don't be surprised if this one starts to work its magic on you and starts things moving and catalyzing, because that is the energy to which we put the intention for these revolutionary conversations. And there will be so much more to come and so many possibilities to come to join us in new ways. With that, I'll ask you, Janelle, if there's anything else you want to share with everyone listening today.
Yeah, just one reminder. Let me remind you what you already know that we often forget. Time waits for no one. Don't assume you have later. And so to be proactive and want to hear the whisper and want to meet your own truth, begin that now.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Janelle. Thank you, everyone, for joining in. And if this is speaking to you, let it keep acting on you. You will feel it. Lean in. Remember, nothing is outside of you. It's all inside of you, waiting for your precious attention. Look forward to seeing you at the next revolution.